Welcome to the American Diversity Report podcasts, where we interview diverse innovators and amazing change makers. I'm Deborah Levine, the editor-in-chief of the American Diversity Report and your host. And today we are talking with Seun Babalola, who is creator of Docuseries Showju Africa, Do Global Productions. Welcome, Seun.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm amazed at all the different work that you are doing. And I want the audience to know a little bit about you. Seun is a Sierra Leonean, Nigerian-American filmmaker and entrepreneur, born and raised in New York City. Her work focuses on identity, and she also supports initiatives for creatives on the African continent. How did you get involved in all this, Seun?
Good question. So basically, I've always been really fascinated with identity. My mother she was born in Sierra Leone. My father was born in Nigeria. I was born in Brooklyn. And so I always felt like I was a part of many different worlds. And so I found it always interesting that in Brooklyn, I was an African kid, but in Africa, I was an American. And so I wanted to explore, okay, what does it actually mean to an African? Are there different types of Africans? Is this a very old way of doing things, or is it evolving? Are there new ways that we can see, how we identify as being African? And so my background is in production and film production. It was my major in college, and I've always been interested in film. And I wanted to explore that. I wanted to explore that concept. And I didn't see it anywhere in a lot of media that I watched. Africa is often treated as if it's a country, and there's over 50, and there's not even dozens, there's thousands of ethnic groups and languages and just cultural differences that a lot of people aren't aware of. And so I wanted to showcase that. And that's why I created Showju. I just picked up my camera and I was like, I'm going to make this. So I did.
Yeah, that entrepreneurial spirit comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You and I have talked about the drive that is so frequent among first American-born children, and I gather that's you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely me. My parents were very vocal about education, and I was always an avid reader. I was always, just always seeing that there were a lot of just different, avenues that I could take. And my mother specifically definitely didn't, tell us, okay, you have to work here, you have to work here. She was always just saying, if you believe in something, just go for it. You can work for yourself. You don't have to work for any of these people that tell you have to work for that. and I think that's also the African spirit as well. It's very entrepreneurial. There's always a hustle going on. There's always someone starting a business. And in a lot of ways, it's a means to survive, because when things are lacking, you just have to create. It makes you innovative, and it makes you creative. And so I think it's innate in me as an African, but at the same time as a first generation American with parents who are hardworking. And I just saw I didn't see any limits. And so picking up and going really I didn't give it a second thought.
When was the first time you went back to Africa?
Let's see, the first trip was 2015. And that was when I decided to shoot in Sierra Leone. And that was actually, I brought my mom along with me, and that was the first time she went in decades. And so it was very interesting to experience her going back, but then also me being there, being born in New York. And it was just a very different experience in the sense of I saw why I grew up with certain things. Like I saw why there was 5 Alive in the fridge. I saw why, my grandma has these certain ways of saying things. I heard my grandma's accent, but coming out of everyone's mouth, there was context to it now. And so it was really great to experience that. And after that, I spent a month there, and then I just went right to Nigeria, which is where my father was born. And so that put more of myself into context. And I was like, wow, okay. So this is actually who I am. Sierra Leone and Nigeria are very different places, actually. And they both make up a very large part of me. So it was exciting to experience.
Sounds like a wonderful adventure.
Definitely, adventure is a very good way to put it.
What are some of the major highlights you learned from those experiences that you put in your docuseries for others to take away?
So I think every time I go to a new country, it's because I'm very interested in it and because I myself have a lot to learn about it. And what I want people to walk away with is there's diversity in Blackness. I think a lot of the time we're not afforded individuality as Black people. But the reality is we all have different experiences, whether you're Black and from Brazil, whether you're Black and from England, whether you're Black and from Nigeria, or whether you're Black and from Atlanta, Georgia. And all of those experiences make up Blackness. And I love traveling and seeing the common thread, the common underlying thread in all of these cultures, but at the same time seeing that there's very specific individual things that maybe this ethnic group does or this country does. And it's just really exciting because it teaches me more about myself. And I think if more people watch it, even if you're not Black, I think it teaches you more about the world and, just globally how things work. Because even while going to Africa and then talking to Indian friends or, friends who are Caribbean, it's the same thing. It's the same culture. Watching Crazy Rich Asians, I was like, this is exactly what like Nigerian aunties do. So I think it's relatable across the scale. And so that's been the most exciting thing that's been revealed to me, that we're all very similar.
So explain to me what Nigerian aunties do. I want to hear it.
Wow. I think they're very notorious for being, what's a good way to say it? They don't hold back their opinions. My favorite thing, because obviously I have quite a few Nigerian aunties, they're very supportive and they want you to do better. But if they disapprove, you will know. And sometimes it's just a glance that they will give you, or it's just some remark that could be passed as a compliment, but you have to really think about it. What did she really mean by that? But it's a great characteristic to have, because it teaches you. You get to really learn body language, I think, from having Nigerian aunties. But that being said, I think that just comes from the strength of African women and kind of the demand that they have for everyone around them to just do better. And I think, that's definitely where it comes from. I know when I go to my aunt's house in Lagos, and she doesn't maybe approve of something I'm wearing, all I need is just a purse of the lips or some look she gives me, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should change my outfit.
I love it. Oh my. And so what has it been like to then return to New York City?
That's a really good question, because New York is always going to be my home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of made me more passionate about seeing just everywhere, just traveling everywhere, because I'm getting, the more time I spend away, the more time it's just confirmed that there's so much more out there around the world, and I just want to experience it all. And not just experience it, but I want to make a difference. I'm very passionate about women's rights and African women's rights. And the more you travel, the more you realize that around the world, you know, women just really aren't respected enough. And so the travel that I do, I think is enlightening me to what maybe I could do from my perspective to help that and maybe contribute to communities for women around the world, maybe through film or print or whatever it might be. Oops, should I?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So, and you want to make a difference, particularly for women, and increase their roles and their ability to be seen and heard. And you do that, I gather, through your documentaries?
Yeah, it's twofold. I try and do that through the documentaries by showcasing women, entrepreneurial women in Africa that are doing amazing, awesome things. And not just Africa, the diaspora as well. But also, I think my presence as an African woman going around with the camera on my shoulder does things as well, right? That image is almost political in Africa because I go to shoots and people don't expect me to be the one running the shoot or, you know, shooting it by myself. And just seeing that, I think, can shift just mindsets. Mm-hmm. And I would love to train African girls and African women in film production so that they can have access to express themselves through like film, media, journalism, whatever it might be, so that these stories can be told and more women across the globe or across the continent can tell these stories that maybe I won't be able to tell.
Wow, that's wonderful. And it's something that, I've been doing in my own way for many, many years, not just through these podcasts, but by giving people a voice on the American Diversity Report. People from all over the world, mm-hmm. whether it's poetry or articles, it makes a difference when they can be heard.
Absolutely.
So and where do your docuseries end up?
So it is right now online. It's on shojuafrica.com. So that's SOJU Africa.com. And it's also, there's a YouTube page where you could just watch all of the videos as well. And that's also Shoju Africa, youtube.com/Shoju Africa. And all the videos are there. I'm constantly uploading new videos with new travels, new stories. And I'm really trying to develop it into maybe a long form network series that can have more reach and go get into more people and more in depth into, you know, these people, young entrepreneurs' lives.
Yes, I know that you have a passion for the creatives in Africa and want to make sure that they have opportunities to be heard. Mm-hmm. What do you have in mind in addition to the docuseries? Are you going to teach, or have you already taught them some?
Well, I've been doing a couple initiatives. There's Shoju, which I would love to, the plan is to kind of evolve it into a larger platform that provides a community space physically and online for creatives where they can share, get opportunities, get training. And then there's also a consultant firm that I started up with two colleagues who are also African women. And we are focused on ecosystem development and industry growth within creative industries. So this past November, we did our first launch to support the animation, comics, and gaming industry in Nigeria, because that's actually a very big industry. And big meaning that there are a lot of companies, about 14 companies that have been working for like a decade or more on it. But the problem is the reach isn't there. So what we wanted to do the first year to help that is not only alert the stakeholders in Nigeria that this is an industry that could help bring economic growth and opportunity. This is also an industry that the community members, local Nigerians, young people can actually support and be a part of. So we we threw Unicon, which was a convention. It was on November 16th and 17th. It was a 2-day event. And we had 800 people show up, comic book and animation and gaming lovers supporting the animation, comics, and gaming industry in Lagos. And it was really exciting because I think a lot of people either didn't know it existed or they didn't have enough avenues to, you know, kind of go and know where to find all of the comic books. So it was really exciting. And so we want to do that again this year. But instead of focusing on awareness this year, maybe focus more on capacity building and figuring out how it could be more sustainable.
Wonderful. My goodness.
Very exciting.
You are busy.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay busy.
I think you're doing very well at that. Oh my goodness. Say in 5 years, where do you hope to be with all this?
Oh man. I don't even know, because I have the type of mentality where I just want to do everything that I can to help and to create and to just put things out there. So, you know, the logical part of me has to scale back and actually look at that realistically. So I would love to actually have Shouju as a series, because I want to continue going around the continent and I want to continue having these like really important dialogues that affect the youth across the continent and just showcase like youth culture and the awesomeness of it, and, you know, how we're developing as different nations right now. So that's definitely one aspect. And another aspect, I would love to have, you know, have launched that whole training for young African women in film and, you know, support more stories being made, because I think that's really important. Me not being, I mean, I'm not the only one doing this. There are so many other young entrepreneurs who are in their own way creating works that are showcasing, you know, amazing modern youth culture. But what I want to do is make it available for everyone to see. So all of our work can be seen, so we can all like get used to the fact that there are different ways of presenting Africa. It's not just one lens, and every perspective is valid. So there's mine, and there's going to be someone from Ivory Coast that has a different way of doing things. And then there's going to be someone from South Africa that has a different way of doing things. But all of this can be in the zeitgeist, and you can choose. You have something to choose from. There's like not just one out there, and that can be the only one.
And it sounds as if it might be a very good educational tool for us here in the United States, because we don't always understand a great deal about Africa at all.
No, not at all. I think I watched, it was maybe a Jimmy Kimmel skit, and they they asked Americans on the street, name a country. And it was just like the simple question. They had a map, and he said, just point to a country. Any country, just point to a country. And then people were like, Africa? And I'm like, this can't be real. So whether it's real or not, you know, the fact that people do probably still think Africa is a country is a thing. And I think it can be very educational, because the way we're portrayed, you know, media is very important in how the world views a community or views a specific people. So when we think of Paris, we think of something. When we think of London, we think of something. But when we think of countries in Africa, we often revert back to, you know, things that we see in movies, whether it be like Blood Diamond or like Out of Africa. But if more people saw that there are villages, but then there are also cities, and there are tradition, and then there's really innovative, you know, underground scenes that are happening. There's all of that and everything in between. People will start to view Africa as more layered as well, and be less ignorant about it. And I think that'll also affect how we treat Africans as well.
I would say that's 100% correct. My goodness. Well, I'm looking forward to watching this docuseries myself. Yeah, it's one of those things where there's so many places in Africa, so many countries, so many different people and traditions. It could be endless, and it would be an amazing group in America to take on watching all of this. And tell me, which countries have you been to already to make documentaries?
So let's see, Botswana,
Mm-hmm.
Sierra Leone, Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria. I did a short piece in Ivory Coast, and then I just recently did a piece in Spain with African women.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. This is do you speak Spanish?
I'm very conversational. I can't get into big technical conversations, but I can get by.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's another reason why Americans need to learn more languages so they can
definitely
understand the world better. Oh my goodness. Well, I've really learned so much from you just in this short time. And I'm looking, as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the docuseries. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about yourself and your work so that people will understand and seek out what you're doing?
Sure. Really, this is definitely just what I'm passionate about. Shoju is just one branch of the tree that I'm trying to build of the wonderful, forest of just African content, varied quality African content. Because I've spoken to people about how, media, film, and TV can act as cultural preservation. And where we are in TV and film, you can kind of look back and see where we were as a culture. And so it's really important to also showcase African, traditions and how we are and where we're developing so that we can look back at it. Maybe we can learn from it, see where we are 50 years from now. It's just so important to create and have that representation, because someone watching it who never thought they could be anything, and then they come across a positive representation of themselves that they can relate to, that can launch something incredible in someone. And then they can go on to do something else. So it's really just the basis. It's a platform that I'm trying to build on and continue to build on and just spread everywhere so that everyone can kind of jump on board, learn from it. We can inspire and grow and, help each other.
Well, I'm sure that the entire audience that is listening is inspired now to to live up to the model that you're representing here. And I gather that you're relatively young and you have many years in which to create amazing things, and I know you will.
Thank you.
I hope that you will come back in a year or so, and let's do another podcast.
Yeah, of course.
What progress you have made in all of these things, and share with us the new places that you've made docuseries in, because I know that you're gonna.
I probably will.
Yes. And so, audience, you are hereby directed to tell us the websites and the YouTube again.
Yes, so the website is shojuafrica.com, SOJUAFRICA.com, or youtube.com/shojuafrica, SOJUAFRICA.
Excellent. Go take a look, leave some comments and questions. We'll be watching for you. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, audience, and for you. Oh, I'm just so amazed at what you're doing and hope that you will be in touch frequently. All
Absolutely.
right?
Definitely. And thank you for having me on, too.
It's a pleasure. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.